This is episode 255 of the Focused Mindset Podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining me today. We have so much to talk about. And today I'm going to just slightly talk about the whole AI explosion and how it doesn't affect the jobs that have to do with interpersonal communication. And we're going to talk about the reasons why. There are so many different directions you could go when you talk about AI. You know, I know people that are completely freaked out by it, hate it, and they don't want to use it. I know people that use it for specific skills that help them be more productive and also more forward moving in whatever project they're in. And I know people that just use it for technical things and people that lean on it for asking questions that help them in their life with their health and their all kinds of different things, right? It's very quickly infiltrated every part of our life. So what about people asking AI devices, bots, programs about things that are interpersonal, about things that should be talked about with a counselor or talked about with another person that has to do with their emotions and maybe even their deep decision making skills, their decisions in life. What about asking AI about that? Does it happen? Absolutely. Of course it does. Any of you that have used AI, you know that it's answering questions based on all the things that it gathers from the internet. And also it's designed in such a way, most of them, to make you stay on and keep chatting with them, right? Like that's what they want you to do is stay on. So specifically, it just will constantly reinforce like, oh, yes, that's true. Well, of course you're good at that. Yes, that's a wonderful idea. And then sometimes we've seen the TikToks and stuff that see when you ask AI a question, a very obvious question, and like what color the sky is, and it's saying the wrong color, and those type of things happen. So there's all kinds of directions you could go and many different opinions. But I just want to think for a minute, like I said, about that interpersonal communication and how valuable we are, these people that work in education, especially speaking to the people that are in mental health, how valuable we are compared to any chat that has AI. And I want you to know that so deeply because it's such an incredible experience when you are looking at someone. I do majority of my coaching online with people that live across the country and, Colorado, Florida, Ohio. I've had people coaching in all these different states. And as far as my the focused mindset coaching, I have never met those people face to face, but I know them. And so when I'm speaking about any of these things I'm speaking of, it can happen through a screen when you're really locked in with them. And it can happen face to face when you're in your school counseling and you're talking to someone, you're going on a walk with them, you're spending time with them, where there's something that happens when you lock in. When you as a human lock in with another human and the two of you are on the same wavelength and you're moving in a direction in a conversation that just something amazing happens in that moment. Now, AI tries to replicate that because when you're deep in trying to figure out a situation, a problem, certain questions that when I was doing a lesson plan, I was using it and it was kind of like, oh, it gave me an idea and I like that idea. And what about this? And it acts like it's having that same type of locked in conversation. Why is it like that? Because they know that that's what's going to make you feel connected to their particular brand of AI. And once you feel connected, you'll keep going back. So I want to be that person for the people that I talk to. I want them to feel connected. I want to be locked in such a way that they know it wasn't just a conversation where it was one-sided and they did all the talking and I'm like, oh, what about this? What about that? That's not the kind of locking in I'm talking about. And it also wasn't me saying, well, did you try this? Did you try that? Well, what I did, and let me tell you this whole story. What do you think? No, it's a skill and also something that just happens when you have rapport. There's someone, your best friend, or when you're in deep in conversation with your spouse or something, like you just get locked in because you know each other's rhythms, and then you're just talking back and forth, and man, it feels great, and there's laughter and there's jokes, and then you go back to the subject, and you're locked in. Or you meet someone and there's automatic rapport with them, just something you have in common. You travel to the same place, you go to the same school, you have the same profession, and right away you're locked in. And that conversation just feels so rewarding, so fulfilling. And it can even inspire you to take action quicker than ever because you have that rapport. You have this quick rapport. Now, I have a whole chapter on how to lay the groundwork on rapport. Also, the ability to be able to be locked in with a conversation. And you learning how to do that and continuing to do that each and every time you meet with someone is one way that you are going to be incredibly valuable to any place whether it's your own company with your clients, or whether it's your school on your campus, or whether it's another place that wants to hire you. It's that human connection that sets us apart. And it's easy to say, but harder for us to really fully grasp how important it is. Now, there is also expertise that you bring to the table. And speaking directly to our school counselors is if we lean on all of the step-by-step things, or just quickly, buy I don't know, just like a program and then use exactly what it says for our counseling, or if we just like put the computer on and show videos, or lean on, PowerPoints. At that point, I have to say, you're really cheapening the profession if you do that too often, because there's an expertise that we bring into the room. There's something that we bring, and we need to be able to be the person that brings that. What is it? It's that we're able to have the expertise. You're able to address a situation and also be a change agent in that situation. If you are only doing things in your practice that anybody else can do, then you are basically allowing yourself to possibly someday be replaced. And there's not only the conversation of being replaced with AI, although if you are always doing something that AI can do and doing it in that exact same way, just saying, you know what, fill out this form and I'll get back to you, and then I'll put you in your classes, and all right, cool. And there's no interpersonal, there's no locking in, there's no rich ability to be able to address a concern, an intervention that is happening because of something that you're bringing to the table, then you're putting yourself in jeopardy. But what about on the other hand, where if anybody else can do your job, then what makes you unique? If you set up lessons and these type of things that anybody can do, then you should reevaluate your worth and then say, I'm worth more than that. And then choose to take the skills that you have learned and take those skills into your work and use them. When I discovered that it was the solution focused approach I was going to really lean into, I went through a period of time where I was really looking and searching for a research-based, very secure way of counseling that fit well with me. Nothing's going to fit perfectly. You're going to be your personality. But when I found the solution focused approach, I knew right away that the reason why this approach helps us be the person that we need to be in front of another person is because of the ability to lock in and also empower, and in a way that you cannot do outside of human interaction. And the type of questions that can be asked can also be asked on a piece of paper and they write it down, or in a Google spreadsheet, or by AI, but it's not going to be the same because of the way that solution focused approach encourages you to listen with two things. One, thinking about their worldview and entering into their worldview. And two, allowing yourself to begin with the end in mind, and the end being their very best hope for their future. and moving towards that in a deliberate fashion. I thought about that's a lot. I just throw it at you, by the way. I realize like we're like 12 minutes in and I've just kind of like telling you everything that's in my brain. But I did have some research and specific things, and I was coming across one podcast I listened to, or I listen to a lot. I want to bring up to you is I Hear You, which is actually an ASCA podcast. And recently I was listening to one of those where they were talking about it is so important that we're intentional, and they were specifically talking about the ramp process. And that's a process that I'm going through right now to be recognized as a school counseling program that is nationally recognized as a model school. It takes being very deliberate and very intentional, and more intentional than I've even had to be for many years. And it also takes what they were talking about is answering the question is, what is my intention in this situation? Now that came up when I was joining the ASCA hours. They have like these free things that ASCA does for the people that are doing ramp to jump on and ask questions live to the people that are the movers and shakers and actually created the ramp process, many of them. And then they are the ones that are grading later. So really cool to get in front of them. And one of them had said, if your intention when you put out an application is just to check the boxes and look good for the ramp application, we can tell. Your intention needs to be to have a model program that you could be proud of, that you're doing the hard work that it takes to make sure and lock in with where the school is and where that school community wants to head and what their goals are and what their data says. And then you're falling in line with that data, and then you're doing deliberate work for a specific purpose after looking at that data. It's so locked into the listening of that listen to the parents and get their feedback, listen to the teachers and get their feedback. What was their feedback? What does that feedback mean to you? How is that feedback going to shape your counseling program? How did it shape your activities? Look at how intentional that is. Look at how that brings value to you as a human, and it should. And that's what one of the reviewers were saying. She was saying being intentional means that you ask what your intention is. It shouldn't be just to fill out an application, quote unquote, correctly. Now, any of you that have done RAMP know that it really does feel like they're just wanting you to fill it out correctly. I'm not going to lie, it has to be just right. That it can be very annoying. So I'm not going to ignore that is actually part of the thing that sometimes doesn't make sense. Like, hey, have a strong intention of doing things right, but make sure you do it just right. Do it just right, or we'll mark you off. But also do it for the right reason. So it's kind of funny. But I did get the message. I got the message, and I even shared in that group that I do have that why that leads me is that for me, I'm the only elementary counselor that's attempting to do ramp right now in my school district. So middle school has done it, high school has done it, and it can be easy for me to put it on the back burner and just be like, this is a lot, but that I have something within me that I want so deeply to be able to do this for my school. Like, I want to be able to have a school that I say, man, I was able to help them have that model program and make a difference in what they're doing. And it drives me, and it's empowered me in a whole new way to use the solution focused approach and use it deliberately. And how can that all happen just by something that I'm signing up for to fill out? It happens because we do need to move with intention. It needs to be something we do on purpose. We need to do it in our actions, do it with how we serve our community, do it with how we serve the room of people that you're in front of, that you're speaking to. Do that when you're in a small group. Do that when you're individual, when you're having an individual counseling session, when you're having an individual conversation. It goes all the way back to the little conversation in the hallway, being intentional and therefore having the possibility of making a difference more than any other long drawn out chat conversation with AI or anything else, because you are knowing how to lock in and say, I want to find out where they're at, and I want to be intentional about the direction that I want to move with this relationship, not what I want to get out of it, what's in it for me, all of those things. Of course, you want things, but you want to lead with your most authentic, caring self that wants to build a connection and lock in with another person, and know all of the reasons why you want to do that. The reasons why is because you do want to be set apart, far apart from anything that they could have got from any other chat that they go to. You want to be able to say, well, I got a lot from those answers, but they remember, what about that conversation I had? Remember, there was something about that, something about the rapport, but it was more. It was something about the way that we came up with ideas and the way that I thought of, and they remember it because they thought of it, right? And what was that question they asked me? It made me start thinking in a totally different direction. Powerful. It is powerful. And the other podcast that made me continue with this whole train of thought was one is called the School for School Counselors podcast. Have you guys heard this? And Steph Johnson is the host of that one. And she talked at the end of one of her podcasts a while back about the paper. Oh my gosh, I wrote it down. What is it called? The paper test. And I thought this is super cool. And it's kind of related to everything we're talking about right now, where if you have a paper in front of you that's like, and it could be digitally if you're having a slide in front of you, if you will, take a minute to sit down and really look at it and be like, if this paper wasn't in front of me, all the stars, all of the boxes, all of the checks, all the whatever's on that paper that's talking about what you need to do with the kid and, some fancy smancy thing, is there an intervention that's happening because of me and what I'm doing right here outside of all of these things that are on the paper? Is there an actual intervention that's happening? Is there an opportunity for change? Is there an opportunity? Is there a change making thing that's happening here, ideally research based, that can be gleaned from this activity? And if not, it could just be a useful tool that is maybe even not so useful, to be honest. You have to really think about it. There's a lot of, I mentioned this in the last podcast, how my intern was like really excited about bringing up things that she had made. And they are useful tools. They're fun. I liked them. But if they're not rooted in some type of actual change that can happen within that person, that's led by them, and an actual movement of change, it's just coloring a paper. It's just going through the motions. It's like, let's just take some deep breaths. It needs to be such an activity that they leave your office or leave your presence and go out and do something different. And then they get the real world experience of being around, say, an argument and trying something different in that argument, and then having a different result than what it would have been, handling an argument differently, and then coming back to you and say, I'm learning how to handle arguments differently. Come to find out, I'm not as argumentative as I thought. I'm not as bossy as I thought, because I'm making some changes in my life in the moment when they're not with you, and then they come back to you. And then the intervention is taking root, not because of a piece of paper that you downloaded, but because of the conversation, because of the actual change that's happening. And that's what makes us valuable. And that's a lot of what she was talking about on that particular episode. Steph was about, that's what makes us valuable as counselors, is the insight, she wasn't using the word insight. It was like the expertise that we bring, and sort of what we talked about at the beginning, right? So, but in order for us to really understand how critical it is, we need to step back and be able to look at all of these elements that we've talked about. That why do we want to lean on just the easy? Why do we want to just be like, you know what? Oh, where was that quick SEL lesson? I'm gonna sit down with kids in 4 weeks and do that quick thing. And then when you're done, you're like, yay, we're done. And bye and have a good day, guys. And then you see them lingering around your door and wanting to talk. And you're like, oh, their group is over. It's done, locked up. I'm moving on. Is that really what we want to do? No. I mean, it happens. It happens by accident. It happens in all of our relationships where we just like want to button it up and move forward. But that attitude is not the attitude that's going to really bring change. It's you opening your eyes and your ears to what's being said and your eyes to the people around you, and really serving the need that's right before your eyes, not just checking a box. And you see that person lingering in front of your door, and you start that conversation and you ask them some questions, and you make a time for them to come in and express to you and have a whole brand new solution focused conversation that's maybe based on a lot of the things that they learned in your group, but also things that they need to be able to bring it to fidelity in their life, the things that they've learned. They don't bring those things to fidelity because you got through 4 lessons, right? You did 4 lessons, yay, it's done. They do it because they went out and made a change, and then they want to make more changes. We're always changing, growing, evolving. And in order to honor that, I really feel like that's how we serve our community. Last year, I had so many referrals at my school. I looked back at the data when I was done, and I was like, oh my goodness gracious. And it's easy at that point to be like, oh, did I serve all of them? Did I see them all? Did I do enough? Did I do enough? And when I started thinking about the fact that it's enough to build a connection with each of those people in the moment that I was able to see them, and then not, I don't know, for lack of better words, ignore them when their time with you is up. And that's one reason I always keep the kids on the caseload for the whole year, not only just, because they filled out a form, but because I want that opportunity for the next time that they might need me to come up, that I'm readily available. So that's the openness that we really need to have. We always need to be ready to be able to lock in, trying hard not to be too busy, trying hard not to be too rushed and too focused on the task that we forget the important part of what makes us human. What that thing that they're trying to emulate in chat when they say, oh, that's a good idea, I think you should try this. They are emulating conversation skills. We can do that more often and better and stronger and more deliberate, and we can do it better. So that's what I hope that you are able to engage in these type of conversations moving forward. Look, feel free to share with me. It is great when you're able to reach out to the people that you listen to and have that personal connection. There, my email is share@thefocusedmindset.com. My website, thefocusedmindset.com. We can communicate through my learning community. That's basically my email community. I email out every now and then. You can email me back. That's the way I've heard from so many people. I appreciate you tuning in to the very end, all the way to the end of this podcast here today. And what I want you to know is that you make a difference. You matter. You matter in the work that you do, whatever that is. The connection that you're making with the people around you, that reigns supreme above anything else. And if you are in a job that works with people, or you're around people at all, then know that your interactions can make a big difference, and it makes you valuable. So until next time, live solution focused. Bye-bye now.